So hi everyone, our presentation will be about psychological sense of community, or abbreviated as PSOC framework. Something on the background of this framework. So it's very rich in the number of sciences on which or from which it draws on, because it draws on behavioral and social sciences, included community psychology, sociology and public health, and overall it adds to management theory. The problem that this framework aims to tackle is a problem that was greatly explained by Mintzberg, a famous scholar in management and business, who claims that contemporary organizations are built on very fragile basis, because they tend to prefer this like detached leadership style and hierarchical form of the organization, and they prefer short-term success over long-term consequences. Mintzberg says that this is wrong, and the companies should try to rebuild themselves as communities and should not prioritize this hierarchical organization of them, but try to build communities so they can sustain long-term and viable companies.
Yep. Great. Okay, so the model consists of 5 points. And the first one is membership. So that talks about how you belong to the community. It's very the psychological feeling of belonging. And then we have the influence. If you influence the community, if you participate actively in it, if you make a difference. The integration and fulfillment of needs. So everybody in the community might have some needs to be fulfilled. That's why they're in the community. For example, I'm a part of the yoga group. People who watch our yoga videos often have a need of doing some yoga or calming down. So that's a need that gets fulfilled in that community. And shared emotional connection. That's if the people in the community connect with each other, and that's also the psychological part of it.
I think especially some find it a little difficult to see the emotional connection as something tangible. An example could be in NGOs, for example, and volunteer work where you're actively working for a cause. You're very committed to the community you're in for the course of it, and therefore have a very strong sense of emotional commitment to that thing.
And the last one, the responsibility. So if you commit to a group like we all are part of a YouTube channel, then you also have the responsibility to help on making videos. Otherwise, it's not a sustainable community. Yeah.
So the PSOC framework helps us identify qualities of a really good and great community. Community building takes time, so we had the first problem of finding one channel which serves all communities at once. So what we did, we went through all the channels we have in our class, and we identified one by one examples within the different communities. The first example itself, which is the sense of membership, can be reenacted through the subscription model that YouTube generally has. So by having a subscription and making the subscription itself an element of the whole narrative, you create this feeling of a membership. The influence can be seen, the influence aspect in a community is give the community the sense or feeling of participating in what is happening. The Femme Fortnight had a great example by doing this, by integrating and reacting to the wish of to the recommendation of why not introduce a t-shirt for itself. It's a very small aspect that can go a very long way. And staying with that beautiful example, offering then this shirt to people as a merchandise is one aspect of fulfilling needs. I don't think I need to go really deep into it, whether the shared emotional connection is something that is really hard to utilize. One way we at Reveal Seal tried to do it is we tried to put the pressure point on one of those pains in the story we tell. We wanted to have people open up about very embarrassing stories. And the first reaction was, why would people do it? And connecting with other people who are already ready to embarrass themselves for their stories itself and share them created this community feeling of, all right, that person did it, I think I can participate with a story I contributed. So this is one example of how an emotional connection can be utilized in a YouTube channel. And responsibility, we have to be honest, we kind of were struggling with this. How can we identify the responsibility aspect in the channels? And one way we came up with was the example of culture unboxing, which had this continuity and the way it got uploaded and the way it presented their stories. So that kind of was a sense of how do you call it? I don't want to say continuity again, but I think you get where I'm going at. So the person subscribing to the channel knows that what their consistency knows that a certain video will be uploaded again, and that is due to the responsibility the channel itself had towards their subscribers.
And yeah, a final thing maybe, because a lot of these things are also concerned with so into not as much the community as all the people you reach, but also internally in well, our groups is very visible. So for example, for the influence part, it's also very much about how each individual member makes him or herself needed in the group, and how he or she is influencing and making differences for the group. In our case, for example, for sportions, we've had some opportunities of doing sports that we probably wouldn't have been able to do had a certain member of our group not been here. So also drawing on network theory and these kind of things, how there are many things that comes into play when discussing these, and also different levels of analysis in terms of the individual, the team, and then the community as all the people we reach. Yeah.
Yeah.
And a bit on the critiques, some overall criticisms. It's very subjective. It's not very easy to measure these kind of things. It's qualitative, meaning that you get opinions from people, and from that you have to kind of measure, well, how strong is their sense of, for example, belongingness to the community or the other things. It keeps on being developed. We see that this paper, it's from 2014, actually the fifth element was added in 2010 by the same authors that wrote this one, and it's not commented on apart from a very short note that this was added in later and is not part of the original framework. So in that sense, if we look at the reflexive methodology, that's on the fourth level though, but there's a relatively low level of transparency in terms of the criticism that has been given to the PSOC framework. And these criticisms are not included, they're not examined. And also the ambiguities and inconsistencies are not flagged. The only thing they come close to mentioning this is by stating very, very briefly in the final part of the conclusion that for this framework to actually reach its full potential, some rather significant gaps in both the methodology and the theoretical framework must be filled out. So, I mean, it's kind of a short note, but discrediting a lot of the empirical evidence they claim to have. And just going back to the third level of this stuff, there's a meta-narrative of psychology that is one of the core principles that social psychology behavioral psychology is resting on, that humans are social beings and they have a need for social belongingness. And that's, well, what this whole thing is based of. And one take out from this, it's written for communities originally as well, and what these guys, Noel, right? are saying or are suggesting is that we can actually use this understanding of communities within organizations, because the higher, the more you kind of fulfill these levels of the PSOC framework, the stronger sense of belongingness your members have to the community, the more arguably efficiency will you reach, because the members feel more inclined to voluntarily do more work and to work for the cause of the organization or whatever. So, yeah.
And also to put it up against the primal branding strategy or theory that just was presented. So this is more the psychological way, where the other one is more tangible and hands-on. So they can be good to maybe use together or critique one another.
Yeah. Yeah, we talked about how the other one, or just talked about, is very step by step in terms of actual things you can implement to kind of reach what you're trying to reach with this.
Yeah, and this is more of an like ongoing process you all the time have to look into, and
Yeah. That's it. Done.
Give him a hand.
This.